You're now tuned in live to Calix Boxing post-fight show, Gennady Golovkin versus Kell Brook. Hit that sub button for nightly boxing videos. Sort of an odd fight, anticlimactic fight. A fight, the first 4 rounds was exciting. You know, to me, the conclusion of the fight, we all knew where this was going. If you follow boxing, if you knew about the matchup, you know where this was going. It was eventually going to be a Gennady Golovkin stoppage, just depended on what round. But it was entertaining for the first 4 rounds. You know, I'll give it that. And a lot of people thought it would be. A lot of people thought Kell Brook would have his moments early in the fight, use his lateral movement, try to find his range, and stay in there as long as he could. I will say this. What surprised me about Kell Brook is his chin, man. The guy has a hell of a chin. To be able to take the shots, because Gennady Golovkin just kept walking him down, walking him down, walking him down. He had no, and you saw in the post-fight interview, he said, you know, I had no fear of his power. He was just touching me. You know, I just didn't fear his power at all. And he was just walking him down, walking straight through his punches, was using no head movement, just basically walking him down. So you knew it was only a matter of time before the stoppage came, but Golovkin was just tagging him with some huge shots as Kell Brook is moving backwards with his head in the air, and Kell Brook is just taking these it's not like he was knocked out. He was stopped, and he was still standing up when he was stopped. So to take 4.5 rounds of that punishment and still stand when Golovkin has knocked out middleweights before a quicker time than that. It says a lot about Kell Brook's chin, and when you look at Kell Brook's future, you start to think, okay, you know, and I was the detractor of Kell Brook stepping up to 160 because I felt he had a lot to prove at 147 still. If you look at the post-fight interview he gave, it's clear that his days at 147 are over because he said he wants to move into 154. He wants to settle into 154. And I think he fits in nicely at 154. When you look at his future and you look at this fight, he took those power shots well. So you say, okay, you look at what's there between 154 and 160. You say, man, he could stay in there with anybody at 154 and 160, not named Golovkin. I mean, look at the landscape at 154. I'd probably pick him as a favorite against anybody at 154, to be honest. And 154 is the deep division of decent guys. You don't have anybody who stands out besides Canelo, and we don't know where Canelo's at right now. He's somewhere between 154 and 160. But you have a lot of decent guys. And I would pick Kell Brook to beat any of those after watching this. My issue with Kell Brook after this is, to me, it was kind of off-putting in the post-fight interview when he's blaming his eye for this. And yes, his eye was kind of blinky during the fight, but his eye was still completely open. When he's giving the post-fight interview and he's saying, I couldn't see, you know, my eye. I just couldn't go any further with my eye. When we've seen dudes' eyes much worse than that, and they continue to go on in the fight. To me, it was a convenient excuse to get out of there. And I hate to use that word because to me, as I came into this fight, and I've said it many times over on this channel, Kell Brook had nothing to lose in this fight, only to gain. He can only gain from this fight for doing something that fighters should do, stepping up, taking chances, and he took a chance he didn't have to take, stepping up 2 weight divisions to fight arguably the most feared guy in boxing. And he did something that Sergio Martinez was afraid to do. He did something that Canelo Alvarez is afraid to do. He did something that Danny Jacobs is afraid to do. He did something Billy Joe Saunders is afraid to do. The list goes on and on and on. He did something that Miguel Cotto was afraid to do. So you can't help but give him props for that. However, it's sort of a gray area here because you're looking at the fight and you're saying, okay, he's doing some things well. To me, the ending was anticlimactic. It was a smart move because he was going to get knocked out at some point, whether it be in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew that he was going to get stopped in this fight. I mean, anybody who wasn't a fervent Kell Brook supporter knew how this thing was going to finish. So his team is smart for throwing in the towel. They did what they're supposed to do. They protected their fighter. However, when Kell Brook is doing the post-fight interview and he's saying, I'm a warrior, I wanted to keep going on, my eye is what stopped me, I don't think they should have stopped the fight. To me, it almost looked like this thing was planned before the fight. His team told him, hey, you get in trouble early in this fight, this guy punches too hard, we're going to stop the fight. Kell Brook was not, if you go back and watch the fight, he was not complaining when they stopped this fight. He didn't complain at all. He was out on his feet. He was taking a lot of shots. It was a smart stoppage. And to me, it looked like something that was discussed before, whether it was in between the 4th and 5th round, whether it was before the fight, whether it was in the second round. They talked to him before the fight, and he seemed to be okay with it. And he said in the second round, when he went back to his corner, he said he told them that his eye was giving him trouble, that his eye was bothering him. And that's what I said before coming into the fight. Guys talk big game before they get in there with Triple G, but then they feel the power, and they're like, they have that moment in the fight where they're like, all right, do I quit here or do I keep going? And they always choose the easier route, and you can't really blame them because you see the power. You see the power, and it just left a little bit of a gray area there for Kell Brook because a lot of people wanted him to go out on the shield. If he goes out on the shield, obviously it helps his case going forward as far as endearing to the fans. You heard a lot of fans. I think I heard boos in the arena because of the stoppage, and they wanted it to go on. They wanted him to go out on the shield. And for Kell Brook to say, you know, I was going to take over the fight in the middle to late rounds, to me, it seems like a convenient thing to say. And that's what the corner is supposed to do, though. The corner is supposed to make their fighter look good. They don't want the fighter to quit in the ring, and they don't want the fighter to get knocked out. So they're going to take the blame. They're going to throw the towel. They'll take the blame. Hey, put it on us. The fighter can go out and say, I didn't like the stoppage. I didn't like my team stopping. They can act angry all they want and say, hey, I would have taken over the fight after that. And it makes the fighter look better, and at the same time protects the fighter. So I think that's what Kell Brook's team obviously did here, and Kell Brook obviously did here. But it does leave some gray area there. A lot of people did not want to see the fight end that way and just see basically the team, how they're going to perceive it, quit. But to me, they're saving their fighter. They're saving their fighter. And to me, it didn't really disappoint me because I knew what the ending was going to be. You know, whether, like I said, whether it be the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, I knew what the finish was going to be. I mean, if you're unbiased, you're going into this, you don't really have a dog in the fight. You knew Golovkin was going to stop him at some point. There's only so long when you're outgunned, when you have a pistol and the other guy has an AR-15, there's only so long you can hold them off. Lateral movement only works so long. There's only so long you can control distance when a guy doesn't fear your power. He's not even using head movement. He's not even using upper body movement to evade your shots. And he's just walking straight through your punches, and you're backing into the ropes with your head up in the air, and he's digging into your body and then coming back upstairs and hitting you with some hellacious shots while he's fighting on his front foot, and he's arguably the biggest puncher in boxing. There's only so much you can take. There's only so much you can take. So I thought it was a smart stoppage. It didn't really disappoint me, to be honest. And if anything, you know, maybe it was a cash grab for Kell Brook. Maybe it was, hey, I'm just going to get my money and get out of here as quick as possible and then settle into 154. But to me, I was actually impressed by Kell Brook's chin first and foremost. His chin, like I said, taking those hellacious shots that middleweights haven't been able to take. And coming back for, I believe that was the first round. I believe he was hurt by Golovkin's shots. First or third round, he was hurt. I think it was the first round, and he came back beautifully from those shots. You know, he would stumble a little bit, and then he started to sort of take over the round. I only had him win in the second round. Don't get me wrong, but he had some moments late in that first round where you're like, okay. And then the second round, he boxed beautifully, used his lateral movement well. Used his jab well to control distance, and he was actually catching Golovkin with some power shots, and they looked to they landed nicely. So, like I said, when I look at the future for Kell Brook, it's bright. They saved him in this fight. His corner saved him. He didn't take damage. He got out of this. He didn't take extra damage. He got out of this still healthy. So that's good. And he's going to settle into 154 nicely. And after this, more big fights should come his way. I mean, I don't see why, if Canelo is going to be somewhere between 154 and 160, why they can't make a Canelo versus Kell Brook fight. I mean, there are fighters there between 154 and 160 that this guy could fight. And like I said, I would favor him over anybody at 154. It's hard to say at 160, but I wouldn't mind seeing Kell Brook versus Danny Jacobs. I wouldn't mind seeing Kell Brook versus Billy Joe Saunders. I wouldn't mind those fights at all. Because anybody at 160, yes, I mean, there's still decent punchers at 160, but the gap between Golovkin and everybody else at 160 as far as punching power goes is big. And the same thing goes for 154. So if this guy can take Golovkin's shots without being knocked out, yes, he was stopped, but without being knocked out, you say, okay, he can take anybody else's punching power 154 to 160. And boxing-wise, foot movement-wise, lateral movement-wise, using the jab, I was just very impressed with Kell Brook's boxing style. And this is coming from a guy myself who, coming into the fight, was like, I don't know if Kell Brook is really as good as people say. You know, he didn't, besides beating Sean Porter at 147, he really hasn't done much. So he did impress me in that sense. You know, yes, it did come off as a cash grab how they ended the fight. It did come off anticlimactic. It was sort of disappointing, but at the same time, like I said, from a guy like myself who wasn't expecting much from this fight at all, it didn't really disappoint me because it was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before Triple G got him. But let's talk about Triple G, because this is an interesting dynamic here. If you look at the post-fight interview he gave with HBO, he's saying he rated his performance a 3 or 4 out of 10. There was a rumor going around that he was sick. He debunked that rumor. He said, I wasn't sick at all. I just wasn't smiling. I wanted to get to the weigh-in and get back to the hotel. So he wasn't sick. He was at 100%. Triple G, the best thing that could possibly happen to him tonight happened. He looked vulnerable. That's the best thing that could possibly happen to him, because Danny Jacobs could be sitting back and watching this fight and saying, you know what? He doesn't use much head movement. You know what? He doesn't cut off the ring. He just follows and follows. And that in itself is a boxing technique as well. You don't have to cut off the ring. You can follow, especially if you have punching power. But Danny Jacobs could see something, you know, he has some habits that we could possibly take advantage of. I would say the same thing about Billy Joe Saunders, but it seems like he doesn't want to fight anybody. So they called out Billy Joe Saunders after the fight. They won his belt, but I just don't see Billy Joe Saunders coming to the table. I don't, unless he proves me wrong. But Danny Jacobs has seemed to warm up to it. As far as they pay him what he deserves. So he says, what that is, I don't know. Will he price himself out of the fight? I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. Triple G showing vulnerabilities in this fight is good. It's good for his career, because guys start to think, you know, maybe. You know what? Maybe. If this guy who they say is a welterweight came up and you know, maybe had some success in this fight, maybe I could do it. You know, maybe Canelo's looking at this and saying, you know what, instead of fighting this guy in the fall, maybe we fight him in the spring. Maybe we push it up. So looking vulnerable in this fight, and maybe it was a plan for Triple G to not use head movement. And, you know, I've heard those theories before as well. That's an interesting thing too, is Triple G not using head movement because he doesn't respect what's coming back at him? He doesn't respect the punching power that's been coming back at him? Or does he just not have any head movement? You know, it's interesting because I have seen Triple G use head movement. I have seen it in the past. So it does open up that question. Is he just not using it? Or does he not have it at all? You know, I don't know. He got caught with a lot of shots in this fight, and he got caught with shots in the past, and it doesn't seem to bother him at all. Like he said in the post fight, I just wanted a street fight. And he graded himself a 3 or 4 because he said he felt he looked horrible. Abel Sanchez graded it a 4. He said that Triple G fought a fight that he just wanted to get Kell Brook out of there. He wanted a street fight, and he said that he felt Triple G fought a dumb fight, and he didn't fight the best fight. Triple G said it felt like a sparring session in there, and that's what I thought coming in, that it would be a glorified sparring session, and it really turned out to be that. Because there seemed to be a lot of quit in the Kell Brook camp, and Kell Brook late in the fight, it was only a matter of time, like I said. So it did come off as sort of a glorified sparring session in round 4 or 5, at least. But a lot. It does open up questions for Triple G, and it will open up questions for his detractors. You'll see his detractors come on here on the YTBC in the next couple of days and say, this guy doesn't have any head movement. This guy is flat-footed. This guy is this guy is that. And that, what I'm saying is, that's good ultimately for Triple G's career going forward. Is guys are going to start questioning this stuff, and then guys are going to start to get a little more brave to get in the ring with him. And at the same time, vulnerability makes you more endearing to fight fans as well. And that's one of the things that you see people are kind of aggravated, especially Kell Brook's avid supporters who expected more out of this fight. The reason those guys are probably upset right now is they expected, even though Kell Brook was weathering a storm, they expected him to get through that storm and fight and go out on his shield. Fight fans like vulnerability. It makes you more human to them. It makes you more endearing. And Triple G getting hit with more shots and looking more vulnerable will make him a little more human, a little more exciting. Instead of coming off as a killer robot, it makes him a little more human and maybe more endearing, even more endearing to fans. I don't know. So vulnerability could be good. I mean, look at all the vulnerable fighters who, the Miguel Cottos, the Carl Froches, those are my favorite type of fighters, the Arturo Gattis, because they get hit a lot, they come back, and they're just fun to watch. So I don't know. Triple G, I'm hoping the Danny Jacobs fight is next. Because like I said, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is coming to the table. Danny Jacobs talked a big game after he beat Sergio Mora last night in the rematch, a fight that shouldn't have even happened. But I'm hoping that fight happens next, because that would be a fun fight between two offensive-minded fighters. It would be a lot of fireworks. And Danny Jacobs can punch, man. Danny Jacobs can punch. And Triple G has shown that he doesn't mind getting hit. He doesn't want to use his head movement. He doesn't want to use them. I tend to lean towards the fact that he has head movement. He has upper body movement. He doesn't want to use it. I thought D-Style brought up a good point in his preview to this fight. Is Triple G's jab is it's telegraphed. You can see it coming. It is a power jab, though. It hurts. It hurts guys. It snaps their neck back, but you can see it coming. So you can see some of Triple G's punches coming. But he does show you good angles. He's not flat-footed. You'll hear that in the next coming days. He's not flat-footed. He's not worried about cutting off the ring, because he's just going to walk you down and step through your punches. But there is backfire to that, because if you step in there with a guy like Danny Jacobs who can punch, who's to say he's not going to hurt you? If you're not worried about cutting off the ring, if you're not worried about using angles, if you're not worried about using head movement, if you have it, Danny Jacobs is the type of puncher who could possibly hurt you. So I'm just hoping he steps in the ring, is brave enough to step in the ring with Triple G, and we get that fight, because I think that would be a hell of a fight between two offensive-minded fighters. Ultimately, I still think Triple G by knockout. Against anybody between 154 and 160, I pick Triple G by knockout, but including Canelo, even though that'd be a hell of a fight. But ultimately, I just hope these fights start to happen. I hope they begin to materialize, being that Triple G did look a bit vulnerable tonight. And I think that's the best, ultimately, that's the best thing that could have happened to him tonight, that he looks vulnerable. I think you could take away, if you're a Golovkin supporter and a Kell Brook supporter, you can take away good things from both guys tonight. The good thing you can take from Kell Brook is, hey, looking forward, this guy took the biggest shots from the biggest puncher in between 154 and 160, and you still were standing at the end of the day through 4.5 rounds. So your chin is pretty damn good. Your chin can stand up from anybody between 154 and 160. And at the same time, although you took damage, although you complain about your eye is still completely open. You still come out of this fight healthy. Your team still saved you. Your team still did the right thing by taking the arrows from the fans and saying, hey, we're going to stop this fight, save our guy for the next day. He's still standing. He'll be able to say, hey, I would have been able to take over this fight. Hey, I would have been able to do this. I would have been able to do that. I wanted to go out like a warrior. But you saved him from having to go out like a warrior because you were the bad guy. Don't make the fighter the bad guy. Don't make the fighter quit. Don't make the fighter get knocked out viciously for no damn reason because he didn't necessarily belong in the ring with this beast to begin with, stepping up 2 divisions. Let you be the bad guy. That's your job as the corner. You be the bad guy. You take the bullets and save your fighter for the next day. So I commend Kell Brook's corner for doing that. You know, yes, we wanted a better fight, but to me, it was what it was coming in. It was a stoppage where no matter what round it was going to be a stoppage. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves. Kell Brook was not going to take over the fight. It was only a matter of time. There's only so long you can use lateral movement. There's only so long you can control distance against a guy who doesn't respect your power at all, a bigger guy who doesn't respect your power at all and continues to knock you down and knock you back and using his front foot. His team did the right thing at the end of the day. And yes, it was a pay-per-view over there, and yes, people wanted more for their money, but it is what it is. I just felt that people were a little bit delusional coming into this, thinking that Kell Brook actually had a shot of winning this fight. He didn't, but he still showed himself well, and there's still great things to look forward to in the future for Kell Brook. He impressed me. He impressed me through 4.5 rounds. So props to him. You know, let me give him the clap sound. Props to Kell Brook. And once again, I'll say it again. I've said it a million times. Props to Kell Brook for doing something that Sergio Martinez was afraid to do. Billy Joe Saunders was afraid to do. Danny Jacobs has been afraid to do. Miguel Cotto was afraid to do. Canelo Alvarez is afraid to do. Props to him for stepping up 2 weight classes when nobody was even asking him to do that. For doing it. And yes, he got paid well. Yes, he got paid well, but those guys would have got paid well as well. And they didn't do it. So props to him for doing it and at least trying to compete. And, you know, whether the discussion happened before the fight that, hey, let's stop this thing early. Let's try to look good, go balls to the wall for 3 or 4 rounds, and then stop it whenever we get in the least bit of trouble. I'm sure that discussion happened before the fight. Maybe it happened in between rounds, as Kell Brook said. But I'm sure it happened before the fight as well, that, hey, we need to save this guy from himself if he gets in the least bit of trouble. So maybe it was a cash grab, I don't know. But he still did something that those guys were afraid to do, and there's still a lot, even though Triple G, it wasn't his best performance, even though he graded it a 3 or 4 out of 10. There's still positives to take from this because looking vulnerable for him is a good thing at this point in his career. You don't want to continue to look like a killer robot because guys just will not step in there with you. So the vulnerability factor for him is good. So that's a good thing to take away from, even though this was one of his worst performances, to be honest. If I'm being honest, it was, to me, it was, I was watching it and I was like, the power is there. There's nobody questioning that. But offensively, he doesn't look that good tonight. Defensively, he doesn't look any good tonight. It wasn't his, to me, it was one of the worst performances I've seen from him, to be honest. And give some props to Kell Brook for that, too. That's due to Kell Brook's lateral movement tonight and him throwing some nice combinations in between Triple G's combinations and fighting back, even when he was hurt in the first round. So, once again, props to Kell Brook for that. And let me say this, too. You UK fans, man, y'all know how to do it out there. That environment came through the screen, and for all these people saying boxing is dying, boxing is dying, boxing is dying, when you see what guys are doing in the UK and the fans are incredible out there. They support their fighters. They get out there. You can just feel it coming through the TV screen. Not even being there, you can just feel the environment coming through, and guys know how to support their fighters out there. They know how to put on a show. I mean, you see the spotlights going everywhere and people singing before the fights and the extravagant ring entrances, and the environment the atmosphere just comes through the screen. It bleeds through the screen, and it's beautiful to see. Y'all are doing it well out there, and boxing is thriving out there. Boxing is thriving. So I'd like to see Kell Brook get into another big fight, possibly out there or wherever. I don't know. If Amir Khan wants to step to him. Amir Khan just fought at 155 against Canelo, and if Kell Brook wants to ease in at 154, why not do Brook versus Khan at 154? They both fought at or above that weight so far, so they could both easily make that weight. Why not do Brook versus Khan too? And I'd pick Brook by knockout, obviously, but that'd be a big domestic fight out there too. So a lot of angles you can go with Kell Brook right now. So I think ultimately this would be a good thing for him, even in a loss. I said coming in, it's refreshing to see a guy who's not worried about that O. He's not worried about that O in that right column. He just wants to go out there and compete, make some money. But there's a way to make money and still be endearing to fans, and he did that. He did that. Overall, I was impressed with him. So Triple G versus Kell Brook played out much like I thought. Honestly, I actually thought it lasted longer than I expected. So it is what it is. Y'all hit me up. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this, and let me know who do y'all want to see Triple G fight next, and do you think they'll come to the table now that Triple G looked a little more vulnerable? And how do you grade Triple G's performance? And also let me know, where does Kell Brook go from here? Where does Kell Brook from here? Because I think that story has a little more legs after this. Is where does he go from here? Where does he fit in at 154? Does he stay at 160? Because if he can take these punches from the baddest one of the baddest middleweight on the planet in a long time, arguably the biggest puncher in boxing, he can stand in there with anybody at middleweight. So does he stay at middleweight? Or does he ease in at 154? And who would you like to see him fight in that deep division of like I said, of fighters who are not good or not really good, but decent fighters? It's a deep division of decent fighters at 154 besides Canelo. So, but I wouldn't mind seeing Kell Brook versus Canelo. I don't see why they can't do that fight. Kell Brook's a big enough name. And it keeps Canelo away from Triple G for longer if that's what he wants. But maybe Kell Brook, with his lateral movement, gives Canelo fits, being that Canelo is a little bit bothered by lateral movement, more so than Triple G, that's for sure. So I would actually, talking about that, I wouldn't mind seeing Kell Brook versus Canelo at 154. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. Why not make that fight? Maybe Oscar wants to keep him away from guys with lateral movement. I don't know, but because it's been a couple of years since he fought Austin Trout, he fought Erislandy Lara, he fought Floyd Mayweather, so he's fought guys with lateral movement. He fought Amir Khan, who had lateral movement, although oversized. But that's 4 guys who he fought with lateral movement. He beat 3 of them. So, we'll see. I think it's a good fight as well. But many different avenues you can go with Kell Brook. I just ultimately, this is pretty much what I expected, but I was even more impressed with Kell Brook's boxing skills in those 4.5 rounds, particularly the first 4 rounds, and his chin. I was very impressed with his chin. Pleasantly surprised by his chin. Man, he was taking some hellacious shots. And, I don't know. But the questions, I think when you look around the YTBC the next couple days, the questions will be abound. The question will be everywhere, especially from his detractors, Golovkin's detractors, saying this guy's not what people are saying. This guy doesn't have good foot movement. He has more problems with setting his feet than people are saying. He doesn't use his head movement. He doesn't use upper body movement. His punches are telegraphic. Even as Bernard Hopkins said, he said he was pushing his punches more than snapping them in the early rounds. I don't know. You'll hear a lot of that. And once again, just remember, if you're a Golovkin supporter, that's a good thing. You want him to come off vulnerable and more human-like than robotic, with more of a killer robot. So ultimately, good night of boxing. And once again, good job to the UK fans out there for putting on a great show and great entertainment. And y'all know how to put on events out there. Y'all really do. So hit me up. Let me know what y'all thought about this fight. Triple G stops Kell Brook, 5th round. I'm out. God bless. Peace.